Hello and welcome to the daily newspaper analysis. Today we shall be discussing the newspaper of the 21st of March. So coming to the first article, separate freedoms. Now the context here is that the Supreme Court has recently in one of its orders extended the deadline on linking Aadhaar to various services. Now initially the deadline was of 31st of March, but this order came on the 13th of March and this deadline has now been extended up till the judgment of the Supreme Court. So indeed this is an important issue. It is a major development in this particular case, but this judgment is what is being criticized here because this is only extending to the services that were supposed to be linked to Aadhaar, and it has not been extended to the welfare schemes which are linked with Aadhaar. So that is the entire context here. Now coming to the issues. First and foremost, what is analyzed in the editorial is the case Puttaswamy versus Union of India case. Now, as you all know, this is a historic and a landmark judgment of the Supreme Court of India. This judgment came in the year 2017 when right to privacy was declared as a fundamental right by the Supreme Court. Previously, the government in this particular case had given an argument that privacy was something that was a luxury of the elite, and it doesn't matter to the poor whether or not they are given privacy. What matters to them is that they are given welfare schemes. But in this particular case, the Supreme Court noted that privacy is not something that is a luxury for the rich. Rather, it is the core of autonomy and dignity, and also it is in line with the pursuit of happiness principles which are enshrined in the Constitution. So as for all of these issues, privacy is something that should be given to every single citizen equally, and government's claim was flouted. Another thing which the Supreme Court had noted in this particular judgment was that the Supreme Court had said that economic rights cannot override civil and political rights, and this is something that is very important because often the government claims, and this is not something that is exclusive to India, this is a pattern that is seen globally, that often governments are seen to be claiming that for giving a particular economic right to a person, his civil and political rights can be breached. But indeed, the Supreme Court has given a landmark judgment where the Supreme Court has disallowed such kind of precedents in India. So this is something that is important. Another thing is that the Supreme Court has said that the fundamental rights under no situation can be taken away for granting benefits from the government, and it is the duty of the government to give benefits to the citizen rather than a charity which the government is doing. So in that context, this entire idea of right to privacy is very, very important. Now, based on this right to privacy only, Aadhaar issue is something that is again being relooked into because it is said that privacy concerns are something that have not been addressed in the Aadhaar issue. So that is something that is important here. Now another issue here is with regards to selective extension. Now this is the primary criticism against this order of the Supreme Court. As I have mentioned previously also, that the extension on government mandated deadline on linking Aadhaar to different services like banking, mobile phone and PAN number is something that is allowed by the Supreme Court. However, but a similar extension was not made under Section 7 of the Adhaar Act. This is something that is important. Section 7 of the Adhaar Act talks about the welfare schemes for availing the benefits of which a person will have to give his Adhaar number. So in that context, a large population is still dependent upon mandatory acquiring of Aadhaar. So that is something that has been criticized here, that this order has not been an all-encompassing one. It has benefited only one section, and rather a large section of people who are dependent on these welfare schemes have not been benefited. So that is what is the criticism which has been made against this particular order of the Supreme Court. Another analysis is that when the Supreme Court in the 2017 judgment came up with the idea of privacy being a universal right for all the citizens, then why is it that now the Supreme Court has moved away from its previous judgment and now the Supreme Court is not valuing the privacy of a large section of the population? So that is something that has been analyzed here. Another analysis in this editorial is with regards to the problems with Aadhaar. Now this is something that is repetitive. I have time and again discussed, so we shall quickly be enumerating the problems with Aadhaar. First and foremost problem is that the UIDAI, which is the primary body which has implemented Aadhaar, was not a body formed by a legislative action. This was formed after an executive decision. So that is one problem. Another thing is that the Aadhaar Act of 2016, this was something that was introduced as a money bill, and as a result of which Rajya Sabha could not debate on this particular bill. So this again this does not result in a comprehensive legislation of Aadhaar. This is often seen to be flouting the rules. So that is one criticism here. Another thing is that Aadhaar has not shown any major concern for the right to privacy of the citizens. Another thing is that even this Aadhaar Act, and time and again the Supreme Court have called that Aadhaar should be voluntary. But in practice, this is something that has not happened. The Section 7 of the Act makes it mandatory for some schemes to have to get implemented only when they are linked with Aadhaar. Approximately 130 of such schemes are what have been linked with Aadhaar. These schemes include major schemes and important schemes like the PDS, the midday meal schemes, the elderly pension, the public health care, food subsidy, maternity benefits. So you can see that these are major welfare schemes which have been linked to Aadhaar. Another issue with regards to Aadhaar is that often there are emerging cases of denial of benefits to the citizens due to failing biometric authentication. So that is one pertinent issue. And this is a summary of all the problems with regards to Aadhaar. So that is something that is important. Another very important analysis here is the questions on judiciary. That now you all know that in the past there has been there has been a lot of conflict within the judiciary. 4 senior most judges of the judiciary have come out in the open. They had held a press conference where they accused the Chief Justice of India for colluding with the government, and they have said that the roster is not prepared in a rational manner. So in that context, it is being feared that it might happen that a case of such importance like the Aadhaar, which is a very sensitive matter, and the government has much stakes in this case, that in such a case, is there a room for some degree of collusion between the government and judiciary? So in that context, some questions are what are being raised against the judiciary. So that is an important analysis. Another very important analysis here is with regards to social contract. Now, what is happening in the backdrop of this Aadhaar issue is that the entire idea of a social contract is something that is facing a threat, and it is facing a threat of being reduced to a rubble. Now, a social contract is a contract between the government and the citizens. And in this contract, the citizens give some rights to the government to ensure some degree of management. It is the citizen which is superior to the government, and the government is not superior to the citizen. But what is happening in the Aadhaar issue is that the government is acting as a superior to citizen, and it is saying that for functioning and for providing some of its own duties, it will have to take away the rights of the citizen, and this is something that is a breach of social contract, and this is something that has been analyzed in this editorial. Social contract is a part of our syllabus in ethics paper, so from that perspective, this is something that is important. Aadhaar issue is important for this year. A judgment is soon expected, so that is going to be the relevance. Now coming to the next article. Awash in water crisis. Now the context here is with regards to the water crisis and the natural ways to ensure water security within the country. Now this editorial is primarily in news, or it is context with regards to the World Water Day, which is celebrated on the 22nd of March. So this is some fact that you should know. Now coming to the issues which are important. The first issue is with regards to World Water Development Report. Now, this report has called for nature-based solutions to resolve water crisis. And also this report has highlighted that these nature-based solutions are the only ways to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals target by 2030. So this is something that is important with regards to this report. A new perspective is what has been brought, which is the nature-based solution. So NBS, this is something that is important. Another issue is with regards to the water-related challenges. Now, why is it that the world is facing a water crisis? This is primarily because of the rising world population. Now, at present, the world population is 7.6 billion. However, it is expected that this population is going to balloon to a range of 9.4 to 10.2 billion by the year 2050. And this is a major expansion in population. And 2/3 of this population will be living in urban areas. Also, a large share of this rise is something that is going to come from the continents of Asia and Africa. And these are the continents which are developing and emerging. These are the continents which have countries which are developing and which are emerging economies. So need of water and a water crisis in this region is going to be a major challenge. So that is one of the reasons for a water crisis. Another issue is with regards to climate change. Now, you all know climate change is a reality of our times, and this is impacting the global water cycle. What is happening is that the wetter areas are getting more wetter and the drier areas are getting more drier. So this is one challenge, this is one crisis which has emerged. Also, the demand of water is something that is definitely going to increase. Some data is what has been given that at present the demand is 680 billion cubic meters of water. Now, this is going to expand to 900 billion cubic meters of water by the year 2050. So, this is indeed a huge expansion, and in that context also, water security is an important issue. So, that is something that has been analyzed. Another major issue with regards to water crisis is the pollution of water bodies, and this is much more relevant for India. According to the United Nations Environmental Programme, 80% of industrial and municipal waste is released into the rivers without any prior treatment. And this is something that is impacting the human health as well as the environment. And this is something that is a major cause of concern. Another thing which is important with regards to the pollution in water bodies is that often these water bodies, which are primarily the rivers, they are these require regional cooperation because they are passing through several countries, and also vis-a-vis India, we know that rivers have an interstate passing, as a result of which some cooperation is what is demanded in this scenario, which is being difficult to achieve. Some diplomatic constraints are what are coming in achieving this cooperation with regards to minimizing the pollution in water bodies. So that is one analysis which has been given. Another thing which has been analyzed here with regards to the nature-based solutions are, first and foremost, the environmental friendly agriculture. Now, this is one form of a nature-based solution. This would include measures like conservation tillage, crop diversification, legume intensification, biological pest control. And this is one of the best nature-based solutions which can exist to conserve water. So this is one analysis which has been given. Another very important analysis or another form of nature-based solution is the wetland for wastewater treatment. Now, in the past also we had discussed a similar article where Mr. Dhruba Jyoti Ghosh, who has now passed away, his example was something that was quoted, and his work with regards to the eastern wetlands in West Bengal was something that was discussed. And it was discussed that how wetlands can act as a means to organically purify wastewater, and how this model can be very successful. So that is something that is important, and this is also something that has been highlighted here. These wetlands can either be natural wetlands or artificially constructed wetlands can also ensure nature-based solutions. So that is one important analysis. Another form of nature-based solution is going to be the watershed management. Now, watershed is the entire area which is surrounding a particular water body. Now, this is indeed a natural means. If watershed management is done, then indeed this is a nature-based solution to preserve water. Also, it has other benefits. For example, it spurs the local economic development. It helps in job creation, biodiversity protection, and climate change resilience is something that is ensured with regards to watershed management. So these are some important analysis here. Another aspect is with regards to the traditional and local knowledge. Now, when we had discussed the wetland article in the past also, there also I had mentioned that it is very important that the traditional and local knowledge is something that the country preserves. The indigenous knowledge of the people and tribal people especially is something that is being lost with regards to the global models that are coming. So in that context also, this is something that is going to help preserve the traditional and local knowledge. So that is something that is important, and also this knowledge is the bedrock of sustainable development. So that is one important analysis here. Another analysis in this particular editorial is a case study of Chennai. It has been said that one of the worst water management is what has happened in Chennai because in Chennai the local tanks and local lakes are what have been encroached by urban centers, and also the natural canals of the city, which were previously carrying rainwater into the water bodies, are now being choked, and also they are acting as drainage outlets. Also, a Palikarni marsh area, something that has been talked about, which has now been overrun. So that this case study is something that even we can quote in our answers with regards to poor management of water or water crisis. Indeed, water crisis is something that is an important issue. It is an evergreen topic in UPSC, and any time a question can be expected. So that is going to be the relevance here. Now coming to the next article, Accord under strain. Now this is not very important issue here, because a direct question is something that is not going to be expected, but some aspect of this issue is something that should be known. The context here is with regards to Colombia's presidential elections, which are due in the year 2018. Now what is important here is the background. You should know that the current Colombian president, Mr. Juan Manuel Santon, he has won the Nobel Peace Prize in the year 2016. Now, he had won this Nobel Peace Prize for initiating peace with the revolutionary armed forces of Colombia. For long, there was a rebellion in Colombia, and these revolutionary armed forces were following a violent practice in this country, and peace was something that was elusive. But the current president, Mr. Juan Manuel, he went into a deal with the FARC, and he made his deal was a very compassionate and an empathetic deal. In this particular deal, he made a lot of leverages for this particular group, and in that context, he even won the Nobel Peace Prize. Now what has happened is that parliamentary elections have the results of the parliamentary elections is what has come in Colombia, and as per these results, the opposition party, which is against this particular peace accord with the FARC, has come to power. So now it is being feared that the coming presidential election in the year 2018 will also lead to a replacement of the president, and the president of the opposition party might come into the power, and as a result of which, whatever is the achievement of this peace accord may get washed out. So that is one fear which this editorial is highlighting. You need not know much about the details of Colombia's politics, but yes, you should know about this Nobel Peace Prize. So that is something that is important. This was an important example in the year 2016 for the ethics paper, because this was a compassionate move by the president. He had acknowledged, he had given a lot of concessions to this particular revolutionary group. It was something that was similar to the Gandhian model of hating the crime and not the criminal. So in that context, this was an important example. So some development has happened in this regard, and that is going to be important as an example only. Now coming to the next article, when truth loses. The context here is with regards to fake news. Time and again we are discussing that how fake news is having political impact on countries, and that to major countries like the US. For example, President Trump's election is being questioned on the basis of fake news. Also, Brexit is something that is being questioned. These were two most important developments in the year 2016. So that is the importance here. Now, in this editorial, there are three basic important points which I have extracted. The first issue is that why is it that the fake news is spreading more than the true news? This is primarily because fake news elicits surprise and disgust in people. And whenever people are taken away by surprise, the emotion that it is creating is that of surprise. And this emotion is something that is generating more and more interest. And as a result of which, fake news spreads like wildfire. So that is something that is important here. Another aspect related to fake news is the agents of the spread. Now, it is primarily believed, it was initially believed that the propagation of this fake news takes place through artificial computer mechanisms. But that is not what is the real scenario. Recently, even Twitter has reported that fake news is something that is being propagated by human beings themselves. So that is one cause of concern, that it is the people who are spreading fake news, which makes the spread of fake news even more dangerous. So that is one important analysis. One solution is what has been given in this editorial, which we too can replicate in our answers. The solution is of establishing fact-checking sites. Now, indeed, this is a novel idea which is going to be important. If government-approved fact-checking sites are what are set up, then this menace of fake news is something that can be curbed, because this is having impact on the stability of governments. So that is something that is going to be important here. Fake news, social media is going to be important indeed. So that is going to be the relevance. Now, based on today's discussion, please try and attempt these questions within a word limit of 150 words. And with this, we finish today's discussion. I thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you tomorrow.